You've probably heard the name Rothschild. It gets whispered around, usually tied up in all sorts of wild global conspiracy theories. But what if I told you the real story is way more interesting than any of that? This isn't just a story about a family getting rich. No, this is the story of how a family trapped in a ghetto literally wrote the playbook for modern international finance. So we're going to push all the myths aside and actually look at the books. We're going to see how they turned information into a weapon, how they made logistics a product, and how they built an unbelievable dynasty. This isn't just about money, you know? This is about the raw mechanics of power. Okay, so let's set the scene. Our story kicks off in the 18th century in the Frankfurt ghetto with a man named Meyer Amschel Rothschild. And you've got to understand, the world he was born into wasn't just about being poor. It was a system of, well, legal paralysis. It was designed from the ground up to keep him and his community locked at the very bottom. I mean, the laws were incredibly specific. As a Jewish merchant, Meyer couldn't own land. Nope. He was banned from trading in what were called noble goods, so no new silk, no weapons, not even fresh fruit. The system basically boxed him in, right? It forced him into the dirty, low-profit business of selling used clothes. Yeah, not exactly the starting line for a global empire. But here's the thing. Meyer was ambitious. He knew selling old rags was a dead end, so he looked for a way out, and he found this brilliant little loophole. The laws said nothing about rare coins and antiques, so boom, he pivots. He goes from trading old clothes to trading old money. He becomes an expert, and he targets the wealthiest client he can find, the local ruler, Prince William of Hesse-Kassel. And this is where he turns a simple hobby into a financing machine. See, when the prince wanted a rare coin, a normal broker would just connect the buyer and seller for a small fee. Not Meyer. Oh no. He would go out, borrow money, and buy the coin for himself first. He took on the risk, he owned the asset, and then he sold it to the prince. So he's not just collecting a commission, he's getting the markup on the price too. It was genius. He was double dipping using other people's money. Meyer knew that just trading physical objects had a ceiling. To build real, lasting power, something that would last generations, he needed to become a bank. And so he rolls out his master plan, the famous 5 arrows. He keeps one son in Frankfurt as the home base and sends his other 4 sons out to plant the family flag in the financial hearts of Europe: Vienna, Naples, Paris, and the big one, London. And London? Man, London is where this story just explodes. This is where Meyer's 3rd son, Nathan, shows up. And this guy, he's got a chip on his shoulder and a genius for seeing angles that nobody else could. He was about to take the family business and launch it into the stratosphere. So Nathan gets his start in textiles, just like his father. But he looks at the business completely differently. His whole insight is right there in his own words. While all the other merchants in Manchester were just buying and selling finished cloth, Nathan looked at that and thought, you're just leaving money on the table. So what did he do? He didn't just buy the product. He bought the entire supply chain. He'd buy the raw cotton directly. He'd pay the dyers directly. He'd pay the weavers directly. So at every single step, he's capturing a profit. He turned one transaction into 3 separate profits. His money just started to multiply. And then the Napoleonic Wars kicked off and everything changed. Napoleon starts blockading Britain, so all the legal trade routes are gone. For most people, this was a complete disaster. For Nathan Rothschild, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. He knew the British government was desperate for gold to pay its army. So when the East India Company auctioned off a massive stash of gold, we're talking 800,000 pounds worth, billions in today's money, Nathan bought every single ounce. He cornered the entire market. Now, the British government had to come to him, hat in hand. But here's the genius move. Nathan didn't just sell them the gold. I mean, think about it. A pile of gold in London is useless to the Duke of Wellington fighting in Spain. So Nathan sold them something way more valuable, a guarantee. He used his family's sophisticated smuggling network to deliver that gold straight through enemy territory. The product wasn't the metal, it was the delivery. And this whole story, it really pulls back the curtain on the Rothschilds' true secret weapon. It wasn't just their money. It wasn't even the logistics. It was speed. You got to remember, this is an age where news travels at the speed of a horse. And these guys, they built their own private network of carrier pigeons, fast boats, and couriers. It was, for all intents and purposes, a private internet, 150 years before the real thing. And this network allowed them to become absolute masters of arbitrage. Now, it's a simple concept. You just profit from a price difference for the same exact thing in two different places. But there's one catch. It only works if you have an information advantage. You have to know about the price difference before anyone else does. Let me show you how this works. It's super simple. Let's say the price of an ounce of gold in London is £100. In a world of slow communication, that's the price everyone knows. But a Rothschild carrier pigeon just landed, and they now know that across the channel in Paris, that same ounce of gold is trading for £105. They have information that the rest of the market just doesn't have. So what do? It's a no-brainer. You buy in London, you sell in Paris, and you instantly pocket that £5 difference, multiplied by thousands and thousands of ounces, with almost zero risk. Their profit wasn't really in the gold, it was in the information gap. This is the secret to how they became impossibly mind-bogglingly wealthy. So while the Rothschilds are busy perfecting their European system, all built on family, secrecy, and speed, a whole new kind of banking is rising up across the Atlantic, and this is going to lead to a fundamental clash of financial philosophies. And the difference between them is perfectly captured during the Franco-Prussian War of 1870. The Rothschilds bet against France, figuring the monarchy was about to collapse. And hey, they were right about that, but they missed the bigger picture. Junius Morgan, on the other hand, loaned a ton of money to France. He wasn't betting on a ruler, he was betting on the resilience of the French tax system itself. You see the difference? The Rothschilds bet on kings, Morgan bet on spreadsheets. This really showed the Rothschilds' great weakness, America. They looked at the United States and just saw a chaotic, speculative land of madmen. It didn't have the stable aristocracy they knew how to work with. And because they saw it that way, they largely missed out on the railroads, the steel, and the oil booms that built America into an industrial powerhouse. But, and you gotta love this part, even as J.P. Morgan was becoming the new king of Wall Street, he still had to call the old boss for help. During the financial panic of 1893, the U.S. government was literally days away from defaulting. Morgan stepped in to save the country, but even he didn't have enough gold. So who did he have to cable? The Rothschilds. They provided the 3.5 million ounces of gold needed to prevent a total collapse. So now we jump into the 20th century. We've got world wars, the rise of massive corporations, the whole world of finance is changing. And this new world tested the Rothschilds' family-first model to its absolute limits. It forced a painful choice that would define the bank's entire modern identity. By the 1980s, the family basically split into two camps. In one corner, you had Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, the traditionalist. He believed the bank's soul was in being small, private, and 100% family-controlled. But in the other corner, his cousin Jacob argued that they had to get bigger, go public, and compete head-to-head with Wall Street. It really all came down to a single question: control or size? Well, Sir Evelyn won, Jacob left, and the main Rothschild bank chose the path of control. And you can see the results of that choice so clearly today. The House of Morgan evolved into the behemoth we know as J.P. Morgan Chase. The House of Rothschild, it remained a highly respected but much smaller boutique firm. At the end of the day, they made a trade. They gave up the chance to be the biggest in the world to ensure that they would survive. And that leaves us with a fascinating final thought, doesn't it? In our modern world of quarterly earnings reports and constant pressure for endless growth, the Rothschilds chose longevity over dominance. They avoided becoming the biggest, sure, but they also avoided becoming Lehman Brothers. So it really makes you ask, in the long run, what's the smarter play?